Welcome back to the show. Today we're taking a look at the fight for freedom in Canada through our courts with litigator from the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, Lisa Bildy.
I have a bit of a strange backstory for a lawyer. I did practice for about 7 years, and then I had children, so I stepped away from practice for a while. Became aware of increasing encroachments on our freedoms. Why is our legal regulator telling us what we have to believe? I initiated a pushback effort against the Law Society. Government actors, libraries, universities are trying very hard to constrain what the ideas are that are allowed to take hold in our society. Pro-life groups often find that their freedom to express their views publicly are being curtailed. There are plenty of places where government agents are trying to curtail what we're allowed to say in public. The notion that somebody should be shutting down the conversation because they don't like the views, it's inimical to freedom. If we don't take steps to protect our fundamental freedoms, they will erode over time or quickly sometimes.
Freedom is undoubtedly one of our greatest national assets as a country. John Diefenbaker put it this way, saying, "I am Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to worship in my own way, free to stand for what I think is right, free to oppose what I believe is wrong, and free to choose those who shall govern my country. This is the heritage of freedom that I pledge to uphold for myself and for all mankind." Amazing words. The good news is that the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms states that the freedom of conscience, religion, thought, belief, expression, freedom of the press, peaceful assembly, and freedom of association are all fundamental Canadian rights protected by law. The bad news is that in spite of this, many Canadians have found themselves in the courts battling to protect these very rights. To update you, here are a few recent examples. An Edmonton couple was denied approval to adopt children because of their personal religious beliefs. This was challenged in the courts and reversed. A father faced a formal complaint under the Alberta Human Rights Act for having asked the age and gender of a potential babysitter for his children. Doctors in Ontario were told that they must participate in procedures that they are morally opposed to through effective referrals. A church in New Westminster had their booking canceled for a youth event at a city facility because one of the speakers was a parent rights advocate, and the list goes on. That is why the work of our guest today and her colleagues is so essential and absolutely frontline. Lisa Bildy is a part of the legal team of the Justice Centre for Constitutional Freedoms, a charitable organization committed to defending the constitutional freedoms of Canadians through litigation and education. She is working on the front lines of cases currently in the courts and is here to give us a more in-depth update of what is happening and what we can do to fight for the freedoms that we all hold dear. I know this is going to be another eye-opening conversation. I'm looking forward to introducing her to you, so let's get to it.
I've always been like a socialist, I've always been a feminist, and so to me, words like individual rights and free speech and free expression sort of functioned as almost trigger words or code words. It is really frightening that so many people today seem to believe what social justice means is to censor and to threaten.
It was shocking to me personally that a government entity that is meant to protect the rights of every individual and groups in the society would cancel an event that was already paid for and was not meant to attack anybody. It was quite shocking.
I've had this NDN-CAR plate for so long I can't remember how long that I've had it. This other person said that they thought that somebody must have called in to complain about it.
I was very scared. Like I was like crying. Like when I got that mail, I was crying. I couldn't sleep whole night. I told my husband, what we gonna do? Like we don't have that much money.
It was painful for the girls to be removed this way. We were not going to be their forever home. They were going to move on, to go elsewhere in time. But it wasn't supposed to happen like this.
When the university refused to stand up for us, to respect our rights as students and as citizens, and when they
really made things more difficult for us just because we were controversial. It was disheartening. I wasn't surprised.
The agency shut us down because we were not prepared to lie to the children about Easter Bunny and Santa Claus.
I was working from home by the time, and I was advertising on Facebook for the vaccine services. I don't do guys and transgender. And after like 2-3 months, I got a mail that there was a complaint against me.
The teens and the youth department of our church put a conference together. Eventually, Ambi Center, without hearing our own side of the story, decided to cancel events.
The Justice Center lawyer has so much knowledge. When we went to the hearing, he handled my case very professionally. If there is no Justice Center, there is no J. Cameron, I don't think so I could win.
Lisa, thank you so much for being with us today, for making the trek. This is such a huge conversation for our nation right now. Freedom in the courts. We've had your colleague John Carpe with us a couple times, but tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got involved for the fight for freedom in Canada.
Well, I have a bit of a strange backstory for a lawyer. I did practice for about 7 years when I was younger, and then I had children, so I stepped away from practice for a while. And I ended up homeschooling my kids. So while I was doing that, I was paying attention to things going on in the legal world as well, and I was doing some contract work and so on. But as the kids got a little more independent with their studies, I had time to watch the culture war start to unfold, and became aware of increasing encroachments on our freedoms. And then it hit very close to home when, as I was about to resume going back to practicing law in 2017, our law society that governs all of the lawyers in the profession came out with a new edict that all lawyers and paralegals in the province had to swear a statement of principles that they would promote equality, diversity, and inclusion in their practices, in their personal lives, and even in their retirement. And I thought, first of all, I mean, those sound like very nice words, but why is our legal regulator telling us what we have to believe? That can't be right. They're there to make sure we don't defraud the public, that we're competent to practice law. Why on earth are they trying to get into our heads and tell us what our principles are? Our principles are things that we develop over our lifetime as we thoughtfully consider what our views are. And we have the freedom to do that, at least I thought. So I initiated a pushback effort against the Law Society, which started with a website, and eventually we didn't manage to change the Law Society's mind on it, but we ended up taking the Law Society over effectively through the democratic process. We put together a slate of candidates who were willing to stand up and oppose that statement of principles, and they won the election. So.
Wow,
so that led me.
Works.
It does. It did in that instance. So after that, then I decided, well, I'm kind of keen to get back to practicing law now, and I started my own practice. And then about a month later, I connected with John and J. Cameron, one of the members of the legal team, to say I would be happy to help with some of these freedom cases because I'm really fired up about it. And they said, why don't you come aboard and be part of the team? So
amazing. And the team has been growing because there's such a need.
Absolutely.
In our nation. So what's your read of the court nationally? You talked about what was happening in Ontario with law, but what about what's the temperature nationally in your opinion?
In terms of freedom?
Yeah.
Well, you know, I think it's something that we always have to be on guard about. You know, we should never really stop being on guard because I think, you know, the tyranny runs deep in the heart of man, and if we don't take steps to protect our fundamental freedoms, they will erode over time or quickly sometimes. But this isn't something that's new. We've always had to be on guard for these things. So in terms of cases, we're seeing all sorts now of cases where government actors, libraries, universities are trying very hard to constrain what the the ideas are that are allowed to take hold in our society. So I think that's part of the problem is we've come to a place in society where there really is a battle for ideas. There's a void that has developed. And because some people do like to control what other people can think and believe, we are finding that the discourse, if you don't believe a certain thing, if you don't follow a certain sort of progressive view of the world, your views shouldn't be heard. And I think Christians have been on the front line of this battle because their views are considered to not be sufficiently progressive in order to be given an airing. So oftentimes those are the views that are on the front line, as it were. Pro-life groups often find that their freedom to express their views publicly are being curtailed. So we have a variety of cases that we do across the country. Religious ones are part of them, but not exclusively. There are plenty of places where government agents are trying to curtail what we're allowed to say in public.
Wow, it's very eye-opening. Now, in a moment here, we are going to show a montage of some clips from John Carpe and one of the senior leaders of your team, talking about some of the different cases that are happening in Canada. I'd love to get your feedback on that. And also, you yourself are working on a very important case coming out of Ottawa that I'd love to talk about as well. And we will do that right after this.
Justin Trudeau has indicated that he wants to see a bill against conversion therapy. So the concern is that by putting gender identity in there, you're going to prevent cautious therapists from allowing a child to grow into the body that they were born into.
June 2020, something incredible is happening. The Canada Summit for National Progress. This is a strategic gathering for people who love Canada and want to see it reach its full potential. At the summit, you will hear from knowledgeable speakers who are experts in their fields, giving insight into some of our nation's biggest challenges. Then together, participants will dream and strategize, looking for ideas to solve these challenges through policies, inventions, innovations, or community initiatives. Some of these ideas will be launched right at the summit to impact the lives of Canadians for the better. We believe that the Canada Summit for National Progress could be one of the most significant transformational gatherings in our nation. Canada needs people who can face problems head on, but then look past them with a spirit of hope to find the solutions. We hope you'll join for this cutting-edge gathering of dreamers, innovators, and doers. Let's build a better Canada for the future. Toronto, June 2020. To find out more or register, visit canadasummit.ca. Register soon as capacity is limited and optional VIP networking events are expected to sell out. www.canadasummit.ca.
Through the Faytine Show, we're tackling issues influencing our nation's future, like freedom of conscience, racism, poverty, the debt, human trafficking, abortion, democracy, and much more. If you missed a show, you can watch anytime at faytine.tv or on YouTube. We hope to see you there. We love Canada, and we want to see it strong for generations to come. That's why we do this show. We can't do it alone. We need your help. Unlike commercial TV, this program is 100% donor funded. If you'd like to see more episodes produced on important issues for our nation, please consider signing up to be a monthly partner or giving a special gift today. Every gift makes a real difference, and all gifts are tax deductible. Together, we can build a better Canada for the future. Visit faytine.tv or call 613-552-5572 to donate today.
Megan Murphy is a leading Canadian feminist based in Vancouver, author of the Feminist Current website. In November of 2018, she booked a space with the Vancouver Public Library, or VPL, to hold an event on January the 10th, 2019. A few weeks later, VPL issued a public statement saying they did not agree with the views of Feminist Current, and they said that Megan Murphy's opinions were concerning. They didn't say why. December of 2018, VPL says that there are concerns about public protests and demands $2,047.50 in security fees. It's the same old story, censorship by security fees. This story plays itself out on university campuses as well as public libraries across Canada, but they're not asking the questions they should be asking, like, who is causing the risk to security? Is it the people who want to exercise their legal rights to express their opinions by hosting and organizing an event? Or is it the people who are threatening protests? And the answer is obvious to that. Why should people who want only to exercise their democratic rights to express their opinions have to pay for the bad behavior of those who engage in illegal conduct like blocking and obstructing and blockading? The University of Manitoba Student Union is voting on a motion to ban the distribution of pro-life literature on campus. Back in September of 2018, some students were distributing a large postcard that denounces gender-selective abortion, which, if it matters, is something that 92% of Canadians disagree with. The Student Union says it violates the safe environment policy. Safety should mean that we feel safe, we feel that we're going to be protected from getting killed or raped or robbed or assaulted. That's what safety is about. But if you extend safety into feeling safe by not hearing, not seeing ideas that you disagree with, there's no way you can have free speech on campus. The insanity on campus continues at universities all across Canada. Norman Finkelstein is Jewish and the child of Holocaust survivors, and also a fierce critic of the state of Israel, which he describes as militaristic and a human rights violator and illegally occupying territory. He has also made sympathetic comments about Hezbollah, which is recognized by many countries as a terrorist group. And now, coming soon to a campus near you, Norman Finkelstein is speaking at the University of Toronto in Mississauga. Now, some Jewish groups have started a petition asking the president of the University of Toronto to distance himself and denounce Norman Finkelstein's views. And I find this interesting because it's a very mild request compared to what you would see if you had a conservative or Christian or pro-life or right-of-center speaker on campus. You would be having people screaming for deplatforming and shut down the event and disinvite them, disruptors, so on and so forth. So it's a pretty mild request, but I think the university should still say no, because the university should be there to facilitate all views and not be a player in the game. They should be like a referee. While I disagree with Norman Finkelstein's views, he has a right to be heard and people have a right to listen to what he has to say. And I hope the university will not cancel or interfere with the event. However, universities need to go a lot further and uphold free speech rights on campus for everybody, not just the politically correct. I'm John Carpe. Thanks for listening.
Wow. Chilling and fascinating. I find that last clip so fascinating because here you have certain groups in the nation that are saying, in the name of inclusivity, we want to shut down every dissenting voice. But John says the exact opposite at that last clip where he says, listen, every voice is legitimate as long as we're not breaking laws, we're not hurting each other, there isn't violence involved. That healthy debate is needed for the public square. I think that's very profound. Any thoughts about those clips?
Well, it just goes to show that what I was saying earlier, that we do have a battle of ideas, and the way to deal with conflicting ideas is to hear them out and to have discussion and work out our issues, hear what all of the different perspectives are. The notion that somebody should be shutting down the conversation because they don't like the views is, it's inimical to freedom, and it doesn't lead to the kind of society you would want to live in. Humans have experimented with all sorts of ways of organizing ourselves. And whether it's under the thumb of a dictator or whether it's a state that is in every aspect of our lives dictating what we can say and think, like perhaps a communist Soviet Union, those are not the kinds of societies you want to live in. It's messy to have freedom. People get uncomfortable with freedom. But it is really, if you look at a historical, long-term perspective, it's really the only way that we can live our most fulfilling lives as individuals. And we have to find a way to navigate that. So, of course, there are going to be people that don't like what is being said. They don't get to decide what's being said. And then when I talk about the tyranny that runs through the heart of man, we're seeing that now with mobs that are gathering to try and shut down conversations. Why should you get to shut down a conversation? If you don't like it, present a better idea.
Right.
So, and it isn't just Christians, as you saw. It's Megan Murphy is a feminist, and her views have run afoul of what the current politically correct views are. And so, of course, every time she tries to open her mouth, there's a huge controversy about it. And it's so that's the kind of thing we have to push back against. We can't let the mobs decide what is said. We can't let the mobs decide what is hate. By the way, I mean, we have restrictions on what we can legally say in this country that are very, very limited. But you see this constant effort now to try and expand the notion of what hate is. In the same way as John referred to safety. We're not talking about your life and limb anymore. We're talking about safety from hearing opinions that bother you.
Being emotionally bothered, right?
Right. Well, we can't define hate to include every opinion that you disagree with either. So we have to stand on guard against that kind of thing.
What a time. What a conversation. So let's talk about some of the cases, or one of the cases that you're working on right now, the Ontario Human Rights case against Ottawa Carleton District School Board.
Right.
What's that one about?
Well, that's a very interesting case. Now, we actually didn't start that one. The family of this little girl started it with the help of a lawyer in the background, but we've taken it over and we've amended the pleadings a bit, and we're moving forward with it. But this was a case where a child in a grade 1 classroom was, she came home and told her parents about some interesting things that she had been taught in class. I guess there was another child that may have been questioning their gender, and the teacher, who was a young teacher, quite interested in social justice issues, decided to show the class a video called He, She, or They, which explained basically that people could either be male or be he or she or neither. And if you want to know what someone is, you just ask them their pronouns. And that was followed by a lesson where the teacher put a spectrum on the classroom whiteboard with male at one end and female at the other, and described to the class that you could be anywhere on this spectrum, that there was gender fluidity. And so this little girl says that she, when asked where she was on the spectrum, she indicated she was on the furthest end, marked girl. And it was at that time the teacher announced that boys and girls aren't real. So this child told her parents. She's a very, I think, very clever child, and this actually really quite bothered her. She's thoughtful, and she was concerned about this. She wondered what would happen if she didn't want to be a mummy. Would she have to go to the doctor and get a change done? So her parents were rightfully concerned about what was being taught. And
so she was saying, listen, I identify as a girl.
As a girl.
And then the teacher said, well, girls don't exist.
Right.
And so this bothered her, and now the family's taking the school to court.
Right. Because they're saying, well, if gender identity is protected, well, this little girl's identity as a girl was dismissed as being not real. So, yeah.
What a time. S202. We just got a couple minutes left here. Let's drive to this one. So that's coming out of the Senate. What's that about?
Okay, so that is a bill in the Senate. It doesn't necessarily. It's not necessarily going to end up being law. It has to still go through the House of Commons. However, Justin Trudeau has indicated that he wants to see a bill against conversion therapy, which is what this is, also brought through the House. So I think that probably this will go forward.
There was a member of Parliament last summer that actually said that the revocation of charitable status could be attached to the enforcement of a bill such as this. Is that on your guys' radar at all?
It isn't. That's not the issue that I'm personally is most concerned about. What I'm concerned about is the fact that they've included the term gender identity in that bill. So basically what they're saying is if you are trying to provide therapy that is to convince somebody not to be the gender that they say they are, you might run afoul of that. And because there are a number of practitioners who believe that that if you let a child wait, and if you do something called watchful waiting with children, they will often, probably in about 85% of the cases, end up with their biological sex and their gender matching. But if you proceed with affirming that gender at a young age, often they'll go through a course of puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones and various things. So the concern is that by putting gender identity in there, in that bill, that you're going to prevent cautious therapists from allowing a child to grow into the body that they were born into.
Wow. Wow, this is also fascinating. I'm going to buy you a couple more minutes here on the show because you have so much to say. You had a recent win with the JCCF. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes, we did. It was the U Alberta case. Is that the one you're thinking of? Where a pro-life group had some displays on campus, and there was a protest against them, and they tried to have another opportunity to present their displays later, and the school imposed a security fee. As John was referring to in the clip, this is a way of trying to prevent speakers from coming onto campus, just make it too expensive for them to be able to speak. So it was like a $17,500 fine or security fee. So that was challenged in court, and we were successful in getting, basically the court found that the Charter of Rights does apply to students' expression on campus, and that's actually a big deal. We've been saying it for years, but we have some court affirmation of that now as well.
Wow, and that is just one of the reasons why your work is so important. So I just want to look in the camera right now. JCCF, the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, is actually a nonprofit. It's a charity. Right. You can actually donate to this, and when you donate to this organization, you're helping to fund the fight for freedom. You pick up cases pro bono, right. So if somebody needs to be defended, they can come to you, and they might not have to pay a dime if the donors are supporting the organization. So let's get behind this good work. Lisa, I want to say thank you so much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
You've shed so much light. Thank you so much for joining Lisa, Bildy, and I today to discuss the fight for freedom in Canada's courts. If you care about the issues we discussed today, I want to encourage you to take action. We can all do something to be the change that our nation needs. So please take a moment to contact your member of parliament or provincial representative and ask them to do whatever they can to protect Canadian freedom rights. It could be your call, your email, or letter that makes all the difference. Secondly, please share this show with your friends and family so they can find out more about what is happening and can join in the action as well. Shows can be watched anytime on our YouTube channel, phone app, my public Facebook page, or at fayteen.tv. Lastly, we want to invite you to join our team. As a nonprofit program, this show was made possible today by the generous donations of people who love Canada and want to see it strong for generations to come. And as a partner, you will enable us to keep on air nationwide, speaking to the issues shaping our future. When you sign up to partner for $50 a month or more, you will receive a special gift from us as a token of our heartfelt gratitude. So please feel no pressure, but if you do want to partner, you can call 613-552-5572 or visit fayteen.tv today. God bless you, your loved ones, and we hope to see you next week.